Frozen, a tale of love and magic. In the magical kingdom of Arendelle, two princesses, Elsa and Anna, were the closest of friends. Elsa, the older sister, was born with a unique and powerful gift, the ability to create snow and ice with her hands. As children, they played endlessly, turning the castle halls into their private winter playground. Elsa would conjure sparkling ice slides and snowmen, and Anna would gleefully join in the fun. One night, while playing, Elsa accidentally struck Anna in the head with her icy magic. Frightened and unsure of her powers, Elsa called for help. Their parents, the king and queen, rushed to the rescue and took Anna to the magical trolls in the mountains. The trolls healed Anna but erased her memory of Elsa's magic, warning Elsa to control her powers. From then on, Elsa shut herself away, hiding her gift even from Anna, who couldn't understand why her sister had suddenly become distant. Years passed, and the castle grew quiet and cold. The girls lost their parents to a storm at sea, leaving Elsa to prepare for her role as queen. Anna, ever hopeful and full of energy, longed for connection and adventure, while Elsa grew more fearful of her powers, which were becoming harder to control. Coronation Day. The day of Elsa's coronation finally arrived. For the first time in years, the castle gates were opened, and visitors from all over the kingdom flooded in. Anna was ecstatic to meet new people, and fell head over heels for the charming Prince Hans of the Southern Isles. When Hans proposed marriage after only a few hours, Anna joyfully agreed. At the coronation ball, Anna shared the news with Elsa, hoping for her blessing. But Elsa, shocked by Anna's impulsiveness, refused. Their argument grew heated, and in her frustration, Elsa accidentally unleashed her powers, sending icy spikes across the ballroom. The guests stared in horror as Elsa's secret was revealed. Panicked, Elsa fled the castle, leaving a trail of ice and snow. As she ran, her emotions caused an eternal winter to fall over Arendelle. She climbed to the mountains and built herself a magnificent ice palace, where she could live freely, away from everyone she might hurt. Anna's journey. Determined to bring her sister home and end the winter, Anna set off on a daring journey. Along the way, she met Kristoff, a rugged ice harvester with his trusty reindeer Sven. Though initially reluctant, Kristoff agreed to help Anna after seeing the state of the kingdom. As they traveled, they encountered Olaf, a magical snowman brought to life by Elsa's magic. Olaf was cheerful, innocent, and dreamed of experiencing summer, blissfully unaware of what heat would do to a snowman. Together, they braved blizzards and treacherous terrain, finally reaching Elsa's ice palace. The ice palace inside the shimmering ice castle, Anna tried to convince Elsa to return to Arendelle. But Elsa, overwhelmed by guilt and fear, insisted that she couldn't control her powers and refused to come back. In her distress, she accidentally struck Anna in the heart with her magic. Unaware of the severity of her actions, Elsa created a snowstorm to drive Anna and her friends away. As Anna grew weaker, Kristoff took her to his adoptive family of trolls, who revealed the truth. Anna's heart had been frozen, and only an act of true love could save her. A race against time. Believing that Hans's kiss could save her, Anna rushed back to Arendelle with Kristoff's help. But when she reached Hans, he revealed his true colors. He had been using Anna to gain control of the throne. He left her to freeze, confident that his plan would succeed. Meanwhile, Elsa, captured and brought back to Arendelle, broke free when she learned of Anna's plight. A fierce blizzard engulfed the kingdom as Elsa's emotions spiraled out of control. Kristoff, realizing his love for Anna, rushed back to find her. The ultimate sacrifice. In the storm's chaos, Anna saw Hans about to strike Elsa with his sword. Summoning all her strength, Anna threw herself between them, freezing solid just as Hans's blade struck. Elsa, devastated, held her frozen sister, weeping and blaming herself for everything. But as Elsa's tears fell, Anna began to thaw. Her selfless act of love had broken the curse, proving that true love isn't always romantic. It's the deep bond of family. With her sister's life restored, Elsa realized that love was the key to controlling her powers. She lifted the winter, returning Arendelle to its summer glory. Happily ever after. Anna and Elsa grew closer than ever, their bond stronger now that the secrets were gone. Anna punched Hans for his betrayal, and Kristoff officially became part of Anna's life. Olaf enjoyed summer thanks to Elsa's magic, and the castle gates were opened to everyone. Elsa ruled with grace, her powers now a source of beauty and wonder. The kingdom of Arendelle thrived, and its people marveled at their queen's ability to turn winter into a celebration of Lo.
Moana's epic adventure, restoring the heart of Te Fiti. Long ago, the goddess Te Fiti brought life to the ocean and islands with her magical green heart, a glowing stone full of power. But peace was shattered when the mischievous demigod Maui stole the heart, hoping to give its power to humans. In doing so, he awakened a terrible darkness, and the fiery demon Teka rose to stop him. In their battle, Maui lost both the heart and his magical fishhook in the vast ocean. Without the heart, life began to wither, and darkness slowly spread across the world. Moana and the call of the ocean centuries later, on the island of Motunui, a young girl named Moana grew up hearing the legends of Te Fiti and Maui. Moana was drawn to the ocean her entire life, though her father, Chief Tui, forbade anyone from sailing beyond the reef. He believed the ocean was dangerous and that their people were safest staying on the island. One day, when Moana was a little girl, the ocean itself chose her for a great task. As she played near the shore, the ocean magically revealed the heart of Te Fiti, glowing brightly in her tiny hands. But before she could understand, the moment passed, and the heart was lost to the waves once again. Years later, as Moana grew older, life on Motunui began to change. The crops started dying, the fish vanished, and darkness crept closer to the island. Moana's grandmother, Tala, who was known for her wild spirit and love of stories, revealed the truth. The darkness came because the heart of Te Fiti was lost. She showed Moana a secret cave filled with ancient boats, proving their people were once great wayfinders who sailed far across the ocean. Tala urged Moana to follow the ocean's call, to find Maui and restore the heart of Te Fiti. As she lay ill, Tala gave Moana the glowing green heart, telling her, "The ocean chose you," sailing to find Maui. With courage and determination, Moana set sail into the vast, unknown ocean. The journey was not easy. She faced storms, rough seas, and self-doubt. But the ocean guided her to a distant island, where she found Maui. Maui, however, was not the hero she expected. He was arrogant, self-absorbed, and at first refused to help Moana. He was more interested in getting his magical fishhook back, so he could shapeshift and regain his former glory. Moana, determined to save her people, cleverly tricked Maui into coming with her by stealing his boat. As they sailed together, Maui began to teach Moana how to be a wayfinder, like the navigators of old. He taught her to trust the stars, the ocean, and herself. Facing the Kakamora and Tamatoa, their journey was full of challenges. They were attacked by the Kakamora, a group of tiny, fierce coconut warriors who wanted the heart of Te Fiti. Moana and Maui worked together to escape their traps and continue their voyage. To retrieve Maui's magical fishhook, they traveled to the Lalotai, the realm of monsters. There, they encountered Tamatoa, a giant, shiny crab, obsessed with treasure. Tamatoa had stolen Maui's fishhook and refused to give it back. In a hilarious and dangerous showdown, Moana distracted Tamatoa with her quick thinking and tricked him long enough for Maui to reclaim his fishhook. With the fishhook returned, Maui regained his shape-shifting powers, though he struggled at first. Moana encouraged him, reminding him of his inner strength. Slowly, their friendship grew, and Maui began to see Moana as a true leader and hero, battling Te Ka and restoring the heart. Finally, they reached the place where Te Fiti once lay, but the way was guarded by the fiery demon Te Ka. Maui and Moana worked together to try to restore the heart, but Te Ka's power was immense. During the battle, Maui's fishhook was damaged, and he began to lose hope, ready to abandon the mission. Moana, feeling unworthy and defeated, turned to the ocean for guidance. It was then that she discovered the truth. Te Ka was Te Fiti. The goddess had turned into a vengeful, fiery form after losing her heart. With newfound courage, Moana sailed toward Te Ka, walking calmly as the raging demon approached her. She held the heart high and spoke gently. "I know who you are. They have stolen your heart, but this does not define you." At that moment, Te Ka stopped, and the fire faded from her eyes. Moana placed the heart back into her chest, and the transformation began. The fiery lava demon melted away, revealing the lush green and beautiful form of Te Fiti once more. Life returned to the islands. Flowers bloomed, the ocean was healed, and Te Fiti smiled with gratitude. A hero returns home. Maui, grateful to Moana, thanked her for helping him see who he truly was. Not just a demigod, but a hero who could make things right. As a gesture of friendship, Te Fiti restored Maui's fishhook. Moana sailed back to Motunui, where she was welcomed as a true leader. She taught her people to embrace their history as wayfinders, leading them on a new journey to explore the vast ocean, just as their ancestors once did. With the ocean beside her and her people behind her, Moana had found her true purpose: to sail, to lead, and to bring hope to her world.
Cinderella, a timeless fairy tale. Once upon a time, in a peaceful kingdom, there lived a sweet and kind-hearted girl named Cinderella. Her father had been a wealthy merchant, but after his untimely death, she was left in the care of her cruel stepmother and her two vain stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. While Cinderella was beautiful inside and out, her stepmother and stepsisters were jealous of her grace and charm. To make her life miserable, they turned her into a servant in her own home. Day and night, Cinderella cooked, cleaned, and catered to their every whim. Despite the constant cruelty, Cinderella remained hopeful and found joy in the little things: the sunlight streaming through her window, the chirping of birds, and the company of her loyal animal friends, especially her mice companions, Gus and Jack. The royal invitation. One day, an announcement spread across the kingdom. The king was hosting a royal ball to find a bride for the prince. Every young woman was invited. Anastasia and Drizella squealed with excitement, while Cinderella dreamed of attending. Her stepmother mocked her. "A ball is no place for a girl like you," she said with a sneer. But Cinderella asked, "Why not? I too am eligible." her stepsisters burst into laughter. You, with no dress, no jewels, and no manners? Impossible. Still, her stepmother agreed on one condition. If Cinderella finished all her chores and found something suitable to wear, she could attend. Eagerly, Cinderella pulled out an old dress that had belonged to her mother. With the help of her mice and bird friends, she added ribbons and beads to make it beautiful. Just as she finished, her stepmother and stepsisters appeared. "How dare you think you can go?" they shrieked. Anastasia and Drizella tore the dress to shreds, leaving Cinderella in tears as they left for the ball. The fairy godmother sobbing in the garden, Cinderella felt utterly hopeless. "Why is life so unfair?" she whispered. Suddenly, a soft, golden light appeared. An older woman with a warm smile and sparkling wand emerged. "Don't cry, dear," said the woman. "I am your fairy godmother, and you shall go to the ball." With a flick of her wand, she transformed a pumpkin into a grand carriage, mice into strong white horses, and a friendly dog into a footman. Then, with another wave, she turned Cinderella's torn dress into a stunning ball gown of shimmering silver and glass slippers that sparkled like stars. "Now go," said the fairy godmother, "but remember, the magic will end at midnight. You must leave before then." The ball. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, all eyes turned to her. She was so breathtakingly beautiful that even her stepmother and stepsisters didn't recognize her. The prince, captivated by her elegance, asked her to dance. They danced together all evening, talking and laughing as if they had known each other forever. For the first time, Cinderella felt truly happy and free. But as the clock began to chime midnight, Cinderella remembered the fairy godmother's warning. "I must go," she cried, pulling away from the prince. "Wait," he called, but she was already running down the grand staircase. In her haste, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot. She didn't stop to retrieve it, and disappeared into the night just as the final chime rang out. The search. The next morning, the prince declared he would marry the girl who fit the glass slipper. His servants traveled the kingdom, visiting every home to find her. When they arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepmother locked her in the attic, determined to keep her from trying on the slipper. Meanwhile, Anastasia and Drizella tried to force their feet into the shoe, but it didn't fit. Just as the servants were about to leave, Gus and Jack, the clever mice, stole the attic key and freed Cinderella. She ran downstairs and asked to try the slipper. Her stepmother scoffed, "You, don't waste their time." But the prince's servant allowed her. The slipper fit perfectly. Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the matching glass slipper. Everyone gasped in amazement. Happily ever after. The prince took Cinderella to the palace, where they were married in a grand celebration. Even Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were invited, though they hung their heads in shame. Cinderella, ever kind, forgave them but chose to leave her old life behind. She and the prince lived happily ever after, proving that kindness, courage, and a little magic can make dreams come true. The end. In a quiet, cozy room bathed in soft golden light, a small child yawns, ready for the night. Through the window shines a silvery moon, casting shadows that drift and swoon. Around the room are toys and things, a gentle bear, a bunny with wings, a dollhouse bright with tiny lights, and a row of cars parked just right. There's a rocking chair with a soft blue throw, a quilted blanket with stars in rows. A sleepy child snuggles close, listening to the night's soft prose. The child whispers, "Good night, room so dear, Good night, moon, round and clear. Good night, stars, that twinkle so high. Good night, clouds drifting by. Good night, soft and cozy bed, where I lay down my sleepy head. Good night, curtains swaying light. Good night, walls, good night, night. As they look around, they softly say, good night, toys from a playful day. Good night, bear with a gentle face. Good night, bunny, in your soft, snug place. And out the window, stretching wide, good night, tree, with branches spread side to side. Good night, leaves that shimmer and dance. Good night, flowers in a moonlit trance. Good night, owl with wise, round eyes, who watches quietly from her perch up high. Good night, crickets chirping low. Good night, fireflies softly aglow. Good night, river flowing slow, reflecting stars as it winds below. Good night, hills with shadows steep. Good night, world, time for sleep. The child curls up, their eyes start to close as the night wraps them in sweet repose, and one last whisper fills the air, as soft as a feather, as light as a prayer. Good night, dreams of castles tall, and good night, dreams of waterfalls. Good night, dreams of sailing ships, and gentle breezes on fingertips. Good night to all the stories told, of dragons brave and knights of old. Good night, fields and open skies. Good night, stars with twinkling eyes. Good night to wonders near and far, to every flower, tree, and star. Good night, world, all tucked in tight. Good night, and sleep in light. With a sleepy sigh and a whisper light, the child drifts off to dreamland's delight. And outside, the stars keep watch from afar, shining down like a soft, glowing scar. The room is still, the world is deep. Good night to all, it's time to sleep.
The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs who lived with their mother in a cozy little cottage. One bright morning, their mother called them together and said, "My dear children, you are all grown up now. It's time for you to go out into the world and build homes of your own. But remember, whatever you do, make your houses strong enough to keep you safe." The 3 little pigs hugged their mother goodbye and set off on their adventure. The first little pig and his straw house. The first little pig, who loved to play more than anything, thought, "I'll build my house quickly so I can spend the rest of the day having fun." He found a sunny field filled with golden straw. "This will do nicely," he said, and began piling up bundles of straw to form walls. By noon, his house was finished. It wasn't very big or very sturdy, but the little pig didn't mind. "This will keep me warm and cozy," he said, and spent the rest of the day playing in the meadow. The second little pig and his stick house. The second little pig was not as lazy as his brother, but he wasn't a fan of hard work either. He came across a forest with plenty of sticks lying around. "Sticks are stronger than straw," he thought, "and I'll still finish quickly." The third little pig and his brick house. The third little pig was the most hard-working and thoughtful of the 3. He wanted a house that could stand against anything. He found a pile of bricks and began building. It was hard work. He laid each brick carefully, using mortar to hold them together. He built sturdy walls, a solid roof, and even a strong wooden door with a shiny brass handle. By the time he finished, the sun was setting, and he was exhausted. But he looked at his strong brick house and smiled. "This house will keep me safe, no matter what," he said, and he slept soundly that night. The big bad wolf arrives. The next day, a hungry big bad wolf came prowling through the woods. He sniffed the air and said, "Ah, I smell pig, juicy, tender pig." He followed the scent to the first little pig's straw house. The wolf knocked on the door and growled, little pig, let me come in." The first little pig peeked out and squealed, "Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in," roared the wolf. The wolf huffed and puffed, and with one mighty breath, the straw house collapsed. The first little pig squealed in fright and ran as fast as he could to his brother's stick house. The wolf at the stick house. The wolf followed, and soon arrived at the second little pig's stick house. He knocked loudly and growled, little pigs, let me come in." "Not by the hair on our chinny chin chins," the two pigs cried. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The wolf huffed and puffed, and though the stick house held out longer than the straw one, it too came crashing down. The two pigs screamed and ran to their brother's brick house. The wolf at the brick house. The wolf, now very hungry and very angry, followed them to the brick house. He banged on the door and shouted, little pigs, let me come in." "Not by the hair on our chinny chin chins," the three pigs replied from inside. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The wolf huffed and puffed. He blew and blew until he was red in the face. But the brick house didn't budge. The wolf's stomach growled. He decided to try another plan. He climbed up onto the roof and said to himself, "I'll sneak down the chimney and catch those pigs." The clever plan. Inside the brick house, the third little pig heard the wolf's footsteps on the roof. "He's coming down the chimney," the pig said. "Quick, let's light a fire." The pigs built a roaring fire in the fireplace and placed a big pot of boiling water on it. When the wolf slid down the chimney, he landed with a splash right into the hot water. "Yow!" he howled and scrambled back up the chimney, howling all the way. The wolf ran off into the woods, never to bother the three little pigs again. Happily ever after. The first and second little pigs were so grateful to their clever brother. "You were right to work so hard," they said. "From now on, we'll build strong houses too." The three little pigs lived happily ever after in the sturdy brick house, safe and sound. AAs Patience adventure. In a small village, there lived a curious and lively 3-year-old girl named Ada. Ada loved trying new things and doing everything by herself. She spent her days exploring and learning something new. But one day, Ada experienced something she would never forget. One morning, Ada's mother handed her a big box. Inside were colorful toy blocks. Her mother said, "Ada, can you build a tower with these blocks? Let's see how tall you can make it." Ada was thrilled. "Of course I can," she exclaimed, and opened the box eagerly. She started stacking the blocks one by one. First block, then the second block. But as she placed the third block, the tower collapsed. Ada looked at it in disbelief. "Why did it fall?" she mumbled. She tried again, but the blocks fell again. On her third attempt, she became frustrated. Her face turned red, and she threw the blocks onto the floor, shouting, "I can't do it. It's too hard. I'll never be able to do it." Hearing her cries, Ada's mother came over, sat down beside her, and gently held her hands. "Ada, why are you so upset?" her mother asked kindly. Ada's eyes filled with tears. "I keep trying, but it doesn't work. I can't do it." Her mother smiled and said, "You know, Ada, when I was your age, I also struggled with some things. But then I heard a story that changed everything for me. Would you like to hear it?" Ada wiped her tears and nodded. "Yes, tell me." "Okay, listen now. Once upon a time," her mother began, "there was a little bunny who wanted to grow a carrot in her garden. She was so excited because it would be the first thing she grew all by herself. The bunny planted a seed in the soil, and went to check the garden the next day. But nothing had grown. The seed was still under the ground. The little bunny was disappointed. "This carrot will never grow," she cried, and started to feel very sad. But just then, her mother came over and said, "Little bunny, carrots don't grow overnight. They need time, care, and patience. If you water the soil, wait for the sun to shine, and keep taking care of your seed, one day you'll have a big carrot." So, the little bunny decided to listen to her mother. Every day she went to her garden, watered the soil, and waited. Days turned into weeks, and finally, a tiny sprout appeared. The sprout grew bigger and bigger until one day, the bunny had the biggest carrot she had ever seen. The bunny was so happy. "I did it because I was patient," she said. Ada listened closely to the story. She thought for a moment and then asked, "So, will my tower be like the carrot? If I'm patient, can I build it too?" Her mother smiled and said, "Exactly, Ada. Start by stacking one block at a time. If it falls, don't be upset. Just try again. If you keep going and stay patient, you'll build a tall tower." Ada took a deep breath and decided to try again. This time she carefully stacked the blocks, one by one. At first the blocks fell again, but instead of crying, Ada remembered the little bunny and her carrot. "It's okay, I'll try again," Ada told herself, and after a few more tries, she built a tall, beautiful tower. Ada jumped up and down with excitement. "I did it! I was patient like the bunny." From that day on, whenever Ada faced a challenge, she remembered the bunny and the carrot. Instead of giving up, she learned to be patient and to keep trying. Her mother often reminded her, "Patience makes even the hardest tasks easier." Remember, Ada, if you don't give up, you can do anything. The Little Bumblebee's Big Adventure. In the light of the early morning, a tiny bumblebee named Bella stretched her wings for the very first time. She wiggled out of her cozy honeycomb and felt a tingle of excitement. The world was so big and full of colors, and Bella couldn't wait to explore. But there was one more thing. Bella was very, very hungry. On Monday, Bella buzzed out into the garden and found a meadow full of flowers. She spotted a tiny bluebell flower swaying in the breeze. It smelled sweet, and Bella decided to take her first sip of nectar. "Yum!" Bella thought as she tasted the cool, sweet nectar from the one bluebell. She felt a little energy burst, but her tiny tummy still rumbled. "I'm still hungry," she said, and she tucked herself into a leaf and rested for the next day. On Tuesday, Bella woke up bright and early, ready to find more flowers. She flew a little farther and came across two bright yellow dandelions, popping up cheerfully from the grass. She sipped from each one, letting the nectar fill her up. It was delicious, but Bella's wings felt stronger and she wanted to explore more. But still, her tummy gave a little grumble. "Maybe tomorrow I'll find even more flowers," Bella said, feeling hopeful. On Wednesday, Bella found 3 purple clover blossoms hiding near the edge of a pond. Their color was deep and rich, and she couldn't resist sipping from each clover blossom. "These are the tastiest yet," Bella buzzed happily. After tasting the clovers, she felt stronger and braver. But just a little while later, her tummy let out another rumble. "Still hungry," she laughed, feeling her wings grow just a bit. On Thursday, Bella found a patch of 4 pink daisies standing tall under the sun. Each daisy held a sweet droplet of nectar, and Bella sipped from each flower until her legs were sticky with pollen. She flew in circles around the daisies, enjoying the sunlight. "This is amazing," she buzzed, doing a little loop-de-loop. She could fly faster now, and her wings were growing even more. On Friday, Bella ventured to a new part of the garden and found 5 big red poppies. The poppies swayed in the breeze, and Bella carefully sipped their nectar. The taste was rich and filling. 5 flowers today. I'm getting better at this, Bella said, feeling proud. But even after all that nectar, Bella's tummy wasn't quite satisfied. On Saturday, Bella decided to go on a big adventure to explore every part of the garden. She flew from flower to flower, tasting so many kinds: roses, lilies, tulips, sunflowers, and marigolds. She lost count of how many she tried, but she was having so much fun. By the end of the day, Bella was very full and very, very tired. She found a soft, velvety petal on a white lily and curled up for a good rest, feeling her wings tingle with new strength. On Sunday, Bella woke up to a beautiful sunrise. As she stretched her wings, she noticed something magical had happened. They had grown big, shiny, and strong. Her once tiny wings now sparkled in the sun, wide and beautiful. Bella gave a happy buzz and soared into the sky, flying higher than she ever had before. She felt so happy and proud of her journey. She waved her wings at the meadow below and knew that she was ready for even bigger adventures. From that day on, Bella the Bumblebee flew far and wide, tasting flowers from every garden, learning about new blooms, and sharing her story with other little bees who were eager to explore. Every day brought a new discovery, and Bella knew that each sip of nectar and each flight across the sky would lead her to new adventures. The end. The Tale of Sammy Squirrel. Once upon a time, there was a little squirrel named Sammy who lived in a cozy burrow under a big old oak tree. Sammy was a lively squirrel with bright, curious eyes, a bushy tail that bounced as he ran, and a love for adventure that often got him into trouble. He lived with his mother and his 3 sisters, Sally, Sophie, and Susie, who were all very well behaved, except for Sammy, who was always itching for excitement. One crisp, sunny morning, Sammy's mother gathered her children around as they nibbled on acorn muffins for breakfast. "Now, my dears," she said in her soft, wise voice, "I'm off to the far side of the forest to gather nuts. You may play in the sunny patch by the stream or go scampering up the oak, but whatever you do, stay away from Mr. McGregor's garden. It is a dangerous place, especially for little squirrels." "Yes, Mother," said Sally, Sophie, and Susie, nodding their heads obediently. They knew all about Mr. McGregor, the tall, grumpy gardener who did not like animals of any kind trampling through his garden. But Sammy's ears twitched with excitement at the very mention of the garden. Just a peek wouldn't hurt, he thought to himself, already dreaming of the delicious berries and nuts hidden in Mr. McGregor's vegetable beds. As soon as their mother disappeared into the trees, Sammy whispered to his sisters, "Let's go explore Mr. McGregor's garden. Just think of all the treats we'd find." "No way, Sammy," cried Sally. "Mr. McGregor will chase you away." But Sammy only chuckled, flicking his bushy tail. "Oh, don't worry. I'll be back before you know it. I'm the fastest squirrel in the whole forest." With a mischievous grin, Sammy darted down the winding path that led to the edge of Mr. McGregor's garden. He paused for a moment to make sure the coast was clear, then slipped under the wooden gate and into the garden. The garden was like a treasure trove of treats, bursting with rows of leafy greens, piles of shiny red strawberries, fat orange carrots, and the most delicious-looking acorns he had ever seen. "Oh, what a feast!" Sammy squeaked, clapping his paws in delight. He scurried over to a bush heavy with blueberries, plucked the juiciest one, and popped it into his mouth. He nibbled and crunched, savoring the sweet, juicy flavor. Next, he hopped over to a row of tall sunflowers, their golden faces towering above him, and filled his cheeks with seeds. As he was munching away, Sammy spotted a row of bright red tomatoes glistening in the sunlight. "I wonder what these taste like," he thought, scampering over to investigate. He nibbled a corner and was about to take a big bite when he heard a loud, angry thump. Startled, Sammy's heart leapt in his chest. He looked up, and to his horror, he saw Mr. McGregor standing just a few feet away, holding a large garden rake. "What are you doing in my garden, you little rascal?" Mr. McGregor bellowed, his face turning red as he stomped closer. "I'll teach you to stay away." With a squeak of terror, Sammy dashed behind a cabbage plant, his little heart pounding as fast as his tiny paws. He peeked out to see Mr. McGregor's dusty brown boots stomping closer, so he darted under a row of carrots, his tail flicking behind him. But Mr. McGregor was determined. He lunged forward, his rake swooshing down near Sammy's tail, just missing him by inches. Sammy bolted toward a cluster of pumpkins, squeezing himself into a small gap between two big round gourds. He held his breath, hoping Mr. McGregor would pass him by. But Mr. McGregor's sharp eyes spotted him, and he reached down with his big gloved hand. Thinking fast, Sammy leapt over the pumpkins and scrambled through a tangled thicket of vines. His tail got caught for a moment, and he tugged and tugged until, pop, he pulled free, leaving a few strands of his fluffy tail fur caught in the brambles. He could feel Mr. McGregor's shadow looming behind him as he raced toward the gate. Sammy squeezed under the gate just as Mr. McGregor's rake clattered against it, and he scurried down the forest path as fast as his little legs could carry him. Behind him, he heard Mr. McGregor's voice fading in the distance, shouting, "And don't come back, you little scoundrel." When Sammy finally reached the oak tree, he was panting and disheveled, with bits of leaves stuck to his fur and his tail looking a bit less fluffy than before. His sisters ran over, gasping in surprise. "Sammy, what happened to you?" asked Susie. Sammy took a deep breath and told them the whole tale of his wild adventure in Mr. McGregor's garden, complete with the chase and his narrow escape. His sisters listened with wide eyes, shaking their heads at his daring escapade. His mother returned just in time to hear the end of the story. She gave him a gentle, knowing look. "Let this be a lesson, my dear Sammy," she said, brushing a laugh from his fur. "Sometimes the sweetest treats are not worth the trouble they bring. The best adventures happen right here with your family, where you're safe." Sammy nodded, feeling a little embarrassed but relieved to be home. He promised his mother and sisters that from then on, he would stick to the sunny patch by the stream, and from that day forward, Sammy had plenty of exciting adventures. But he kept his paws far away from Mr. McGregor's garden, happy to explore his own part of the forest, where his family was always close by.
One stormy afternoon, when raindrops were thumping against the windows and thunder rumbled in the distance, Luna was sent to her room. She'd been caught splashing in puddles, tracking mud through the house and laughing far too loudly for a rainy day. She flopped onto her bed, kicking off her muddy boots, and stared out the window at the dark clouds rolling in. She felt the low grumble of thunder in her chest, and somehow it matched the way she felt inside. She was angry, restless, and wild. As she lay there, something strange began to happen. The room grew dimmer, the walls began to blur and stretch like clouds in a fast-forward sky, and her bed seemed to lift gently off the ground. Luna sat up, eyes wide, watching her room dissolve into a swirling mist. Her heart raced as she floated higher, her bed drifting up through the ceiling and into the thick gray clouds above. When she peeked over the edge of her bed, she gasped. Beneath her, the mist rolled out like an endless sea, filled with mountains of soft, puffy clouds and valleys of fog. Her room was nowhere to be seen. She was in a land where no one had ever been, high above the world, hidden among the clouds. Then she heard it, a low, rumbling sound that turned into deep, rolling laughter. Shapes began to form out of the mist, enormous figures with bodies made of clouds, eyes like stars, and hair that sparkled with flashes of lightning. They had enormous, puffy paws, and their breaths made the air shiver and hum. These were the cloud creatures, the wildest beings in the sky. The cloud creatures gathered around her bed, their eyes twinkling with curiosity and wonder. They stared down at Luna with their starry eyes, their massive shapes blotting out the dim light from above. "Who dares to enter the land of the clouds?" boomed the biggest one, its voice echoing through the mist. Luna stood up on her bed, her heart pounding with excitement, and held her head high. "I do. I am Luna, Queen of the Clouds," she shouted back. She was not afraid. In this land, she felt powerful and free, fierce and wild. The cloud creatures paused, then threw up their massive, misty arms in applause. "Long live Luna, Queen of the Clouds," they roared, their voices like rolling thunder. "What shall we do, O Queen?" "Let's be wild," Luna cried, her voice ringing out across the Misty Plains. And so they were. The cloud creatures stomped and spun, their great paws thudding on the cloud ground, shaking the mist into little puffs and wisps. Luna leapt from her bed and joined them, dancing and twirling, her laughter echoing alongside their rumbling roars. She rode on their backs as they leapt through the sky, diving through thick layers of clouds, skimming through sheets of silvery rain, and chasing each other through swirling wisps of fog. They showed her how to call lightning with a clap of her hands and make the thunder rumble with a single stomp. She learned to jump through the clouds so high that she could touch the faint light of the stars above, leaving little sparkles in her wake. They played hide-and-seek in enormous banks of fluffy clouds, and whenever Luna hid, the cloud creatures would find her by her laughter, which was as bright and wild as the sky itself. She felt as big and brave as the clouds, as untamed and fearless as the lightning. As the stars began to blink into the sky, one by one, the cloud creatures gathered around her bed. "Stay with us, Luna, Queen of the Clouds," they murmured, their voices soft and rolling now, like a gentle, faraway storm. Luna looked at her bed, which was waiting for her in a cozy pocket of mist. She felt a pang in her chest, not wanting to leave this magical place or her new, wild friends. But as she looked around at their soft, glowing eyes, she knew it was time to go back. "Goodbye, cloud creatures," she whispered. "I'll come back whenever I close my eyes." The cloud creatures nodded, their gentle eyes gleaming like stars in the mist, watching as she climbed onto her bed. Slowly, it began to drift downward, sinking through the mist, through the clouds, back down to where her room reappeared around her. Luna opened her eyes, and there she was, back in her room, her bed settled safely on the floor. The walls were solid, and the sounds of the rain had faded to a gentle patter. But there, on her nightstand, she noticed something new. A tiny, puffy cloud creature, soft and misty, with eyes that glimmered like stars. It smiled at her, curling up in a little ball of mist, waiting just for her. And Luna knew that whenever she closed her eyes, the cloud creatures would be there, just beyond the rain, wild and waiting for her to return.